The earth is our home, which we share with other living creatures. All beings depend on the earth's natural physical world. The earth is endowed with resources for survival of species and human welfare, from soil and rocks, wood, wild fruits, mushrooms, water bodies to minerals and the entire biodiversity for economic prosperity and beautiful landscapes for leisure. There's enough for all. Pope John Paul II noted in his 1990 World Day of Peace message, greed and selfishness are the major causes of environmental crisis, both at an individual and corporate level. In Africa, the population is increasing at a fast rate. More and more trees are cut to support the increasing population. Without grass and trees to protect the soil, wind and water erode badly the ground, leaving the land bare and infertile. Without the earth's resources, life on earth will become unbearable. Protection of the land resources is therefore crucial to the welfare of all. In Zambia, the destruction of the environment and the irresponsible exploitation of natural resources pose a great threat to our home, the earth. In his encyclical letter Laudato Si, Pope Francis makes an important appeal for the protection of our common home. Laudato Si is the new appeal from the Pope addressed to every person living on earth for an inclusive dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet. Pope Francis calls the Church and the world to acknowledge the agency of our environmental challenges and to join him on embarking on a new path. Pastoral agents in Zambia have responded to the call by Pope Francis, and they preach about environmental challenges and propose some possible mitigations. Father Norbert Nkingwa, the parish priest of St-Arneault Parish in Kasama Archdiocese, is a member of the Missionary of Africa, or White Fathers from Tanzania. He believes that preaching about ecology is part of his work as a missionary.
We are very much involved in justice and peace and the integrity of creation. And we do it not only in preaching or telling others what to do or what it has gone, what has happened, what went wrong. But as pastors, we try also to be role models to them.
Father Lawrence, a missionary from Uganda, is his assistant. The two form a perfect union on environmental issues.
It has always been a kind of a treasure for all the peoples, because that's where they get their food, that's where they live, and that's where they do all the economic activities and social activities. And what is very common today we are still talking about is the care for it. In the beginning, there was not much talk about caring for it because people always took it for granted. But the moment as the pressure on land increases because of overpopulation and the need for more land for various economic activities, we have come to at a time when we realize that we have abused the land, the environment, the trees they are cutting to give way for development activities like buildings, minings, and many other activities. And with all this one, they have a negative impact on the way humans live. And that's why we talk of these days the global climate change, and just is affecting us all over.
As pastors, priests have to be models to their followers. The two don't just preach about ecology, but they are showing by example. It just starts where you are.
Doing what we believe and convinced people are supposed to do, we show it by a good example. Like you see this fishing ponds, and then you see the garden chickens, which you are taking care, the chickens we are keeping. And all this is to demonstrate to people that trees, okay, of course, is to demonstrate to people that No, what we preach, in fact, we also practice and we do it, not only words.
There are many reasons for engaging in the effort to enhance environmental awareness and action within the church communities, as observed by Father Fabian Pikiti of Chilubula Parish in Kasama Archdiocese.
Our role is to continue the work of God in creation. Why? Because when you look at creation, it reveals who God is. It shows us the power of God. You know, here where we are in Chilubula, we have 3 big rivers surrounding this place where we are. We have the Luombe River, we have the Lukulu River, we have the Lukupa River. And when you go to Chishimba Falls, for many years, people considered it sacred because of the importance where it was. And the magnitude is so magnificent that people understood it as a shrine, as a sacred place. You know, they look at nature and say it is revealing some, what you may call, refer to as the divine. It reveals the power of God. And that's why they considered it as a place of worship. So they used to go to Chishimba to offer sacrifice, to offer libations in order to ask God's intervention.
Father Pikiti explains the relationship that exists between human beings and nature. He bemoans the lack of environmental awareness, especially among children.
You know, children are not brought in touch with nature. They don't plant a single tree. They don't see how they would appreciate animals around them. When you see an animal, the first thing is to kill it. And this is happening.
When Father Benjamin Itungawonse arrived at Kasamba Parish in Mansa Diocese, he was at pains to understand why there was so much cutting of trees and burning of forests without replacing them. His immediate reaction was to start an afforestation project to involve the parish so as to reverse the trend.
So far we have been involved in so many activities. Of course, we bear in mind our charism and also our orientations as missionaries of Africa. And one of the recent orientations which has been somehow stressed on in various fora and chapters, especially the recent chapters, is the care for the environment. And technically, we call it integrity of creation. So in Kasamba, we are involved in this mission of caring for our environment and also our Mother Earth. So as you have seen, right from the Paris side, we are trying to use our Mother Earth to mold our bricks. So now there is a current, let's say in the region, even the world, to use blocks. But for us, we are using the Mother Earth, molding bricks which will be eventually burnt. And the same bricks you saw, we are going to build a hall which somehow be used by the children who are in that very school, St. Francis, and also people from outside, especially the women who might use the same hall to learn some skills in catering and also sewing. So, and then of course, we are not only involved in construction, but also we have to care for our environment by protecting it. So down towards the Dambo, we have actually planted some few hectares of trees. So far we have planted about 3,500 trees, which have reached the level, some have reached the level of 2 meters, 2.5 meters. And this in view of demonstrating to the people around that indeed it is not good to cut down trees, but we have rather to plant trees to protect our environment and also to care for our earth. Where we are, we have found that the main source of income and economic activities of the people here is fishing, and people fish mainly from the Luapula River, and they have been fishing over and over again, to the point that now it is not enough to fish in Luapula and get enough food.
Father Benjamin has put in a lot of positive work at his parish to encourage people to care for the environment.
Now we have come up with, educating them how they can keep fish for themselves. That's why we have set up some few fish ponds there to demonstrate to them that they can get fish at home without going far to the Luapula, and then this also will somehow help their stability, so that their children who often move with them to the fishing camp will have to be stable and then be able to study. So not only fish ponds we have, but we have also a garden. And this garden also in the same way for educating the people to know that we can produce the food using even dambos, areas which have been considered as to be no man's land. So the same dambos can produce all sorts of vegetables and all sorts of crops and throughout the year.
There's no doubt that Luapula province in Zambia is endowed with abundant natural resources such as water, plains and forests. With the destruction of the environment, these resources will become scarce.
If we don't speed up our efforts in making sure that we come up with ways and means and policies of preserving this, eventually we will lose out at these things, and the benefits that we can derive from this will never be arrived at. Not only that, we've also the beauty that we derive from this heritage that gives us the values that go with the tourism. And then we have come to discover that tourism actually is an economic aspect that is so much appreciated here in Zambia. So really the revenue that we collect from here and other benefits that we can have from here will never be derived, will never be realized if we do not conserve these heritage resources.
The Catholic Church in Mansa Diocese has found a lot of motivation from the Pope's encyclical letter. The diocese has included environmental issues in their pastoral activities.
Following the teachings on the Laudato Si, the encyclical which Pope Francis released talking about the care for motherland, our Diocese of Mansa is also joining the entire church in this noble cause of protecting our environment. In the diocese, we have not just seated back, we have embarked on a serious mission to see to it that our Mother Earth is protected. We have lined up a series of activities. For instance, every year, in the second week of December, we have a Diocesan Ecology Day in conjunction with Caritas Zambia, where we do a bit of planting of trees in various places around Mansa. We don't just end there. We also distribute trees to every parish, trees of different species.
The church in Mansa Diocese uses radio as a medium to communicate environmental messages. Father Justin Kombe is the station manager for Radio Yangeni, owned by the Diocese of Mansa.
Whenever these programs are brought to the radio station, we take keen interest. Because we know the importance, we know the significance of conserving the natural environment.
The work of protecting our environment cannot be a success without the individual commitment of people like Father Francis Bomansah, a missionary of Africa at Lualua Spiritual Formation Center in Kasama.
When the village headman came here to see us, because we had caught some people from the village cutting trees here, we called him, and during the course of the conversation, we proposed that we will be ready to raise a nursery to help people in the village to plant this in order to harvest as firewood. Because even though we say they should not cut the trees, we are aware that they have no other source of energy for cooking. So instead of just talking and say don't cut the trees, we have been reflecting what is the alternative we can give to them. And that is what brought about that thought.
Father Francis is originally from Ghana in West Africa, but is not a stranger to Luo Formation Center, having been here as a novice in the 1980s. As a former student and now rector of the center, he has fond memories of the place and shares how early students and their formators contributed to maintaining the natural surroundings.
And for me, already as a novice, just walking into these rocks, they marveled me. You know, there's a whole beauty around. And so even today, when I look around at the natural vegetation and all what we have planted, it makes me marvel about the beauty of God. And once I sit among these rocks and the natural trees and looking at this beautiful landscape, horizon, just it keeps me and other people just to wonder about the beauty of God. And you cannot but fall into a kind of a sacred silence. And from my experience and the experience of other novices and retreatants sharing with me, coming into these rocks like we are standing here in the middle of the natural vegetation, it puts one in touch with the beauty of God's creation. It puts one in touch with the marvels of God's creation. And as you are put in touch with the marvels of God's creation, it helps to put one in touch with the beauty of himself or herself.
The church's efforts of restoring the environment are not in vain. Some individuals are getting involved in various activities to protect and use the natural resources responsibly. Some organizations such as the Wildlife and Environmental Conservation Society of Zambia are responding to the need to protect the environment.
The Wildlife and Environmental Conservation Society of Zambia started in 1953. It could be the oldest NGO in Zambia running environmental activities in the country. To start with, in early days, the society had brilliant ideas of bringing tourists to the country so that they see our national parks. But with time, early 1972, we were actually told to say we need to come up with a conservation activity. So we started our environmental education program with the Ministry of Education, and that is the Chongololo and the Chipembele clubs, which are found in schools now, running according with the radio program. So we've got a radio program which is running together with the production of our education materials, which are sent to all schools in the country, just to teach people the benefit of protecting our habitat, our biodiversity in the country, and also to make sure that the youth, as they are growing, they understand the nature, the benefit of protecting their biodiversity in the country. As you may be aware that our natural resource is also based on how best we can bring the best practice in protecting these resources. The best areas that there could be conflict of interest, you have a land ministry, those that are dealing with minerals, and you have protected sites which you think are just for biodiversity, and the conflict is that where the protected areas are, it could also be the site of the minerals in the same site. So how do we harmonize the two that we find the best practice to either protect the biodiversity and also mine our minerals, which are actually cardinal for the country? And the line ministries, there's an understanding where as we develop the national biodiversity strategies, we sit together and find the best method we can actually do. What we are doing now under the sector of environment at a national level is to have value of our biodiversity. The biggest national park in the country, the National Kafue National Park, South Ruangwa National Park, Lower Zambezi, all these are areas where you'd find that there's a link of minerals attached to it. And for us, what do we go for? Do we go for the minerals? Do we protect our natural resource? What values do they have? Asking me, a person that comes from the environmental sector, you have the zeal to say we'll protect the biodiversity and forget about the minerals. But the sector for mines would say, well, look, minerals are also important because they bring resources to the country. It's this understanding that is linked with the policies. So a lot of people look at a policy as a stoppage to resources, but it's also a guide that guides you very well how best you can actually protect your natural resource.
Government departments and the regulatory agencies too are responding in various ways to reverse the environmental degradation.
Zambia Agricultural Research Institute, what it is trying to do is, it is looking at species which are able to be planted on those pieces of land which farmers are about to abandon or which they have abandoned, which will be able to improve the soil fertility status within, say, 1 to at most 2 years, so that farmers are not, able to move from one piece of land to the other. They are, thereby reducing the rate at which the forests have been cut. Conservation agriculture, basically, we're encouraging farmers to adopt the 3 principles. That is minimum tillage, maintaining soil residues, and crop rotation.
One or other time I had gone to Kasama. There are some stretches of the road there where you see stacks and stacks of bags of charcoal on the road waiting to be shipped off to the major towns. People are no longer cultivating maize. People are cultivating charcoal. It has become a business. So all this is, in a certain way, a kind of utilitarian. And there are some places, one time I had gone to Mansa some years back in the 80s. Before you cross the bridge, Tuta Bridge, you could still see some wild animals just along the road there. They were still kind of like crossing even. I don't think you still see those animals. And I'm not sure they have all moved somewhere where we can find them. Quite a lot of them have simply disappeared. So all these kind of things, they have brought to our attention the fact that there is something that has gone wrong with our attitude towards the earth. That if we continue with these trends to see the earth as only a resource at the mercy of humanity to be used to our profit, we are seeing where that is leading to, the immediate effects of that. So just for justice and peace, there has been also a similar kind of reflection on the part of religions to contribute. What could be the response of religions? Like I said at the beginning, religions have had a kind of spirituality of nature.
The Catholic Church has shown commitment to caring for the environment, but the efforts of the Church and few NGOs alone cannot turn around the degradation that threatens the earth, our home. Everyone must respond to the Pope's call to care for the environment. In the words of a great prophet of conservation, Thomas Berry, we are a communion of subjects and not a collection of objects.
And when we speak of conservation, we speak of conserving a land like this one with its view and the impact it has on the land, on the climate, on the people, and at the same time for tourism. One would imagine if these trees would be kept in the future, it would attract tourism, school children will come here, visitors from abroad will come to visit it, these fruits will grow, and then people would feed from there. And it would be, in a way, a habitat for animals, for snakes, and for reptiles, and for other endangered species. So it's very important to conserve nature like this one. That's why we promote it.